welcome. Welcome, Paradigm Shifters, to March 16th, 2021. And it is the best March 16th that you've ever had in your life. How about? Do I hear an amen, Tara?
Amen.
What if that was true? What if you made a decision today, right now, that this is the rest of your life? How's that? Well, I just want to welcome everybody. Once again, Paradigm Shifter. We are dedicated globally, 26 countries now. Isn't that cool?
That's cool.
And 835 as of this morning members who are deciding to join us as we shift and uplift each other. Yeah, baby. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited because our guest speaker today is a friend of mine. I would say an old friend, but you are a lot younger than me. And we've known each other for quite a time. And one way that I heard her being introduced by our friend Matt Boggs was the Phoenix. She's from Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix Arising from Arizona. So, yes, and she's got quite a story. One thing I do know about Tara is she is the dynamite mom of twins, and I like to call her Mountain Bike Mama. So, hi, Tara. Come on
Hi,
in.
Judy. I'm fantastic. I love Mountain Bike Mama. I think that might have to become my handle.
Oh,
Mountain Bike
yeah.
Mama.
I love how you're like this, like we've got it, or I've got it, right?
Yeah, that was my podium win. That was my second place win in October. Late on Halloween actually was that day in a race that I done. Yeah, that was a fun day.
Well, tell us a little bit about, you know, just anything at all about yourself and how you got to be where you are. I'm so curious too about this. Well, I'll ask you a little bit
Okay.
about your biking and an accident that you had. So
Oh
tell
yes.
us about that.
I had a couple accidents and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I am like the most unlikely mountain bike racer, one pretty much that you'd meet. In my 20s, I had Epstein-Barr virus. I couldn't exercise for more than a half an hour before I had to sleep for 2 hours. I mean, it was in my late 20s. I was absolutely at exhaustion. I mean, I had that whole chronic fatigue cycle. So it never looked like that was going to be happening. And by my mid 30s, I'd weigh over 220 pounds and had to do an entire lifestyle change to release that weight, which I did. I released 60 pounds of that and kept it off until, of course, as you mentioned, I'm a twins mommy and I got pregnant with twins, which was a blessing. And this all leads into mountain biking. And you have to gain 50 to 60 pounds for a healthy twin pregnancy. So having just like 2 years before done all the work to release that, I had to work on my mental state to get to have to gain it back and did my job, gained it, had two very healthy girls, and then pretty much couldn't exercise. I had done a half marathon in my like when I'm 34 and got injured and could not run and couldn't run for years. I mean, I'd gone to chiropractors, I'd gone to physical therapists, my hip would hurt, I'd run a little bit. I tried. After the pregnancy, I tried running again. I'd first done a little bit of mountain biking in my late 20s, early 30s, and it was like 12-year-old kid fun. It was like play, but it also scared me. But my then husband would say, well, go, you should like riding, you should go ride. But I never wanted to go by myself. So I just didn't do it for decades at all. And what would happen would be I'd get divorced, I'd rebuild my life, and that's another journey. But my girls had turned 11 and I wanted to start exercising. And they said, okay, mommy, you could go and run. And so I would get up and I'd run before they got up out of bed. That running, going from barely being able to run a mile, led to running a Ragnar Trail race, which is 15.4-mile relay race, which led me to a triathlon. And it was that triathlon, believe it or not, that kicked off mountain biking. So this woman who had been way overweight and who never imagined that she could ever um, ride or race or anything and had Epstein Barr, all of a sudden does this trail race. I did this triathlon and it's very interesting. Right after Christmas, I got injured again, a different hip, but similar injury. And for 6 weeks or 3 months before the race, and for 6 weeks, I couldn't run. and I had to buy a bike and trying to get ready for this triathlon. I I went to chiropractors, I went to energy workers, I went to healers, I had massage work, I had myofascial release work, I had everything I could to finally. It took 6 weeks to loosen this hip up, and I could run a little bit, and I did a little bit of biking and a teensy bit of swimming, and I got ready for this triathlon. And I'm like, I'm just going to try to finish. Like it was a short sprint distance triathlon, 800-meter swim, a 12-mile bike ride, and a 5K run. And I thought, I'm just going to try to finish this thing. That was my hope, right? And so I go in, all that. And what was very interesting was I did fine overall, but when I went on the bike, and I'd only done a handful of bike rides, it was a 4-mile lap, and I did the first lap, and at the bottom of this hill there was a speedometer, and I came in at 19 miles an hour. And then I did my next lap, and the bottom of the hill hit the speedometer, and I came in at 19 miles an hour. And then something clicked, and I ran around, and I get to the bottom of the hill, and I was at 33 miles an hour. And I was like, oh. So in my class, the class of slow people, out of 39 people, men and women, I'd come in 11th overall, and I was just trying to finish. I came in 7th out of 26 women, but I came in 4th out of everyone on the bike. And that got my attention. I
Oh, tell
realized
me
I had a.
more. Where was your mindset during all that? Tell me more about the moment that you realized that and what was going on in your mindset.
So when I was those first two laps, I was just trying. I was struggling. I was trying to get uphill. I was just trying to do it, and then my mindset, something shifted. Like in that third lap, there was an absolute shift, and the bike and I kind of became one. And I shifted gear. I literally like shifted gears, right? Because you have to do that on a bike. I'm changing gears, and somehow my mind got quiet, and it was more of an I think I can than I think I can't, kind of like the little engine that could.
There you go. And Paradigm Sisters, I know you're all taking notes. It was a shift from I can't to I can. So,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, keep going. That was an aha. Go ahead.
And I think the other shift, Judy, that happened in that moment is I stopped thinking of it as being hard, and I started thinking of it as being fun.
Ah.
It was still a physical challenge, but it became fun. And when I hit that and I saw that 33 miles an hour, that caught my breath. I was like, oh my God, that's me. I did that. And when I realized I came in 4th overall, I realized, Tara, you have a capacity for cycling that you didn't know you had. So you can leave it on the table or you can do something with it. Now, Judy, we're talking, this is March of 2019. If you had said, Tara, you're a cyclist, I'd have looked at you and said, what you smoking?
Well,
My
no.
ex-husband was a cyclist. This guy I dated was a cyclist. He's a cyclist. She's a cyclist. These people are cyclists. I'm not a cyclist. I mean, that was absolutely my dominant mindset. I am not a cyclist. I was very clear about that. And so to discover that moment, to go, oh my gosh, I had a capacity, that was a shift in paradigm because I realized, oh, there's something in me that wants to ride a bike that I didn't even know was there. I'm 52 years old when I decided I wanted to become reasonably good at riding a mountain bike. It was like road bike or mountain bike. And I'd done enough personal development work to go, well, road bike felt pretty safe, but mountain biking scared me. And it was 12-year-old fun. And so I knew that if it scared me, it would cause me to grow. So I
Ah,
picked
here you
mountain
go,
bike.
friends. Yep.
Yep. I picked it because of the fear, not to avoid the fear.
Because of the fear, but not to avoid the fear.
Yeah.
Love it. Keep going.
And so the way I tell this story to most people, but I'll let you guys in on a little secret. The way I tell the story to most people when they ask me is I said, well, a really good friend of mine said, fine, Tara, if you want to get reasonably good at mountain biking, enter a race. Well, Judy, the secret is that the really good friend was me. I told myself, knowing myself, that I was very deadline oriented, that if you actually want to do this, you need to enter a race. So I tell the rest of the world, so this is totally secret, keep it to yourself. I tell the rest of the world that I was a really good girlfriend. It's just that I was being that really good girlfriend to myself. And so I said, if I was going to enter a race, because mountain biking is really hard. It demands a very high level of fitness. What would I do if I knew I was entering a race? And so I thought, well, if I knew I was entering a race, I'd hire a trainer because I'd need to get fit, and I'd take skills classes because I really need to learn how to ride a mountain bike. And so I found a trainer and I took skills classes. And the first skills class, I said I wanted to do a race. Now, Judy, I'm a beginner. I'm on a not sophisticated bike. I'm still overweight by cyclist standards. And I don't look the picture at all. And that guy looked at me and he said, Tara, this race in December, it's called Dawn to Dusk. He said, that race is a friendly race. So that's the one that went on the books, December 2019. It's a 12-hour race. Every lap is 16 and a half miles. And I knew I needed a team and do it as a relay. So I asked one friend, and then I met another friend. And before I knew it, I had 4 guys that were riding with me regularly. And these guys became my riding brothers. And we had a target for this race in December.
Yep. You know what? I want to fast forward this to
Yep.
this whole incident because I'm thinking like most of the Paradigm Sisters are not mountain bikers. So
Yep.
where is it in there? I know you had an injury and you healed yourself quickly. I would love to have you take us into that
Sure.
moment in time and tell us what was going on and what was your comeback from that.
So getting ready for this race, I
Yeah.
had just, by meeting these guys, I ended up doing 4 races beforehand, and I had finished a 50-mile road race. I got injured. I got a saddle sore on my sits bone. This is right around Thanksgiving. The race is on December 12th. I would end up with an abscess on my sits bone that would land me in the emergency room 7 days before the race. So I've been training for 6 months, 7 days a week to train for this race. And I'm in the ER at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, looking at doctors and nurses, telling them I have a race on Saturday, and they just looked at me pityingly.
Mm.
Because the without getting too anatomical, the swelling was where you sit on a bike. So I could not sit. And this is a week out. They had to surgically drain it, and I am now I have an open wound. And as I'm sitting there lying on the bed in the ER, I am telling myself this: what if this is what it looks like while I hit my race time? I am on the bed in the ER, and I had a 12-mile-an-hour race pace time, which was a big stretch because when I first started with those group of guys, I was riding at 7.8 miles an hour. And to get from there to 12 miles an hour, that's almost 5 miles an hour improvement. That is huge in 6 months. And so I just kept telling myself, I mean, they're coming in. There's this tiny little physician, and she looks at me, and I said, I have a race on Saturday. And she looks at me and she goes, I have a friend who's triathlete. I know people like you. And she basically looked at me and she said, he doesn't take my advice either. And I was like, yes. And I asked her, I said, will I injure myself if I do this race? And she said, no, you won't injure yourself. Notice I was making sure I took care of myself, but it will hurt like a deep bruise. That was all the permission I needed. The next day I was at the gym doing the weights I could. My trainer said to me, Tara, I was like, Kevin, I can't sit. He's like, well, can you sit on a recumbent bike? I could sit on a recumbent bike. So I'm doing my intervals on a recumbent bike, and I'm tending to this open wound, and I'm doing the things that are mine to do. I get to that race on Saturday. My guys, my riding brothers are there with me, and they know that I've just come out of the hospital. Everything looks like I shouldn't be riding. And all week long, I kept telling myself, what if this is what it looks like while I hit my race pace? What if this is what it looks like while I hit my race pace? That was the only thought I allowed in my head. I just knew that every time.
I love that. It was the only thought you let in your head. That's called training, isn't it? And there
Yeah.
had to be a strong passion and this whole reason why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why was that important that you kept that in your head? What is it?
Well, there are 2 things. It was my goal that I've been working towards for 6 months. And so when I would go when I get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym before work, because I have a full-time job and I'm a single mom, um, I needed a motivator to get out of bed to go do that. And my motivator was to hit this race pace. It wasn't a podium winning time. That was not in that race. That would become later. But it was to hit that race pace. I didn't want to let my guys down. I was on a team of 4 and I didn't want to let my team down. And that was my goal. I mean, I was by far the slowest one. And so I knew that I had to hold on to that. And so that was a really good motivator too, was having other people that I
Yeah.
felt accountable to.
And I think as a mom, too, there's that something about being a model for your twins, girls, right?
Yes, girls.
And you told me, and not to take you off at this moment in time, but you told me the other day that I think another one of your goals is to be the best mother that you can be.
Yes.
And because you meet with a group, right, that you've been doing since they've been born, and that there's that accountability to keep that up. And are you going to screw up? Yeah, we all do. But
Yeah.
it's that the motivation. So, um, yeah, take us back to that moment. What happened during that race? Tell us.
So I had to wear 2 chamois. I still had to sit in a sitz bath 4 times a day. So I mean, I had plenty of conditions. I had every reason why I
Yeah.
shouldn't be going in that race, including doctors telling me I shouldn't be going in that race. I mean, there was every circumstance why I should not be going on that race. And I get there and I get on my bike and I go do my ride and I watch my heart rate zones and I do what I was trained to do. And when I came back, it's again 16 and a half miles. The first time I was in within 30 seconds on each lap, and both lap I came in faster than 12 miles an hour. And I
Oh,
was ecstatic.
oh
I
yeah.
was ecstatic. Yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. That was my first challenge that I had to come back from. There was another challenge that I had to come back from in the middle of all of this. So this was December of 2019.
Yeah, and
We
you
know
know
none of this
what?
about to happen.
I'll tell you what, you didn't have to. You chose to.
That's true.
So many people that would be, well, there's a challenge, I can't do it. Oh, well, it's COVID, can't do it. Or this, can't do it. You made a decision for your life.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, as a mom, as a role model, right? Not just to us or not just to you, but seeing yourself as a light and a role model kept, I'm just saying, it keeps me going. And so let go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about like the other challenge. I'm so in tense with like the tools that you're using, and because we can all do that whenever we set a goal. So tell us about the second challenge, and then I want to wrap this up with a question for you, another question. So go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, we'd be training for another series of races, and there's a very famous race called the Whiskey, and I was going to ride the 30. And so we were training for that. We were on this long training ride, 27 miles in to a 35-mile ride. And just for those of you that do ride bikes, we had about 2,700 feet of elevation. This is all trail riding. And I was really, really tired. And I learned something on that ride that I'll tell you in a minute. But really tired. I'd lost a contact. My nutrition was off. I had hydration. We were getting off the trail. We were 50 feet from the trailhead and I fell and I
Oh,
broke my arm. And I would need surgery the next day. And I fell and I hit my head under my helmet on a rock, and I would need 7 stitches in my forehead. And I'm lying there on the ground, rock on my head, arm, looking at my arm, going, my arm's broken. That's going to mess up my racing, right? I mean, so this is March 1st of 2020. Now we're at March 1st of 2020. We haven't gone
sure.
into lockdown yet in Arizona. And I'm literally lying on the rock. And the first thought, Judy, that came to my mind was, what if this is what it looks like while my vision is coming to pass?
Oh,
They had to call the fire department. The paramedics came, they took me to the hospital. I'd spend the night in the hospital. They'd surgically repair my arm. And within a week and a half, I was on my trainer doing what I could, where I was, with what I had. Because frankly, there's a part of me that's a little bit stubborn. And I hadn't worked out 6, 7 days a week for 8 months to gain a kind of fitness that I was then going to let go. And so I was determined. And so I put stickers all over my house that I was going to ride the Whiskey 30 in 2021. Well, none of us anticipated that there'd be a pandemic that would cancel races in 2020 and 2021. So now it's 2022, but it would take 8 weeks and I would be back on the bike. And the thing that was kind of magical about that was like I did my training on my indoor trainer every day. I had this really weird contraption so that my broken arm would be up here so that it was completely safe while I was riding because my legs worked. My arm couldn't take any load, but my legs worked. And I just kept visualizing this race that I was going to do into now 2021. And so I'm a year out from this race and I was going to do it in 2021. And when the doctor released me to ride a bike, and I took my girls and I went outside and just rode very easy on the canals. And having been in lockdown, just like everybody else, there was this freedom. And I realized that was the moment when I got back from the broken arm and I got back on the bike. That was the moment I realized I was a cyclist and that this was with me forever because I do this, Judy, for love. I don't ride a bike because it's exercise, because I promise you I wouldn't exercise. I wouldn't get up at 3:45 in the morning to exercise, but I'd get up at 3:45 in the morning to do something that I loved. And that's why I ride a bike, because I love it. Yeah. And I've got almost all range of motion back. I'm about 98%. The only place I notice it is push-ups. Otherwise we're back. Yeah. And so I've set a new goal, which is this crazy race called the Leadville 100, which is 100 miles of mountain biking
There you go.
in one day, 10,000 feet at 9 to 12,000 foot elevation in the mountains of Colorado.
Oh, awesome,
And
awesome, awesome.
and the big transformation from the woman in her 20s who couldn't exercise for more than a half an hour, who would end up well over 120 pounds, who never thought only she was a cyclist. I've come to realize I'm not only a cyclist, but I'm an athlete. And I found that at 52.
Yes, it's what you call yourself. Oh, I love it, love it, love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, what an inspirational story. And, I just got back from a walk in the park and I was thinking about this inner resourcefulness, it's not about the resources out there, it's their inner resourcefulness.
Mhm.
And I asked God for a sign, show me resourcefulness. And right in front of me, honest, really, Tara, you're not going to believe it, was a guy walking his dog, and his dog had was dragging the back feet, but the guy had hooked up two wheels on the back, and the dog had great front legs, and he had wheels on his back. And I thought, there's love, like you said. You do it out of love. The dog loves to run still. That the owner loves his dog, and they were both outside, motion, getting into motion. And their motion brought my emotion out that said, keep moving, keep moving. So what a story. So I would like to take us a deep breath on here, everyone who's watching this. Yes, and Tara, I have one more question. Are you ready for the last question?
Yes.
What would you love to have us hold for you and
Mm.
your family right now? What would you love? Because one thing we do as a community of paradigm shifters, we so appreciate your story. It motivates us. But what would you love to have us hold for you?
Mm. So my company just decided to close and they've laid us all off. And so more circumstance. So it looks like I'm starting a couple businesses. I'd love that you hold for me that they're wildly success. They're not wildly successful. They're calmly and steadily successful. That's what I would love.
Oh, and so it is. Okay, guys, here we go. Okay, get ready to receive it all the way in Arizona. Ready? Energy.
Woo!
Did you get it?
Yeah. Thank you.
All
I
right,
love
feel it and feel it and feel it. Well, thank you so much for boy. And you know what? We're gonna put Tara's contact information in the group and all of that other stuff. And just know that I love the fact that you're coming from love and what you love to do, and calling yourself an athlete. Yes. Well, thanks so much, Tara, for coming
Thank
in
you,
here.
Judy. What an
Aw.
honor. It's truly a privilege to be here and serve your community. Thank you. I hope if my story inspires one person to go out and find their inner athlete, I'll be so grateful because she or he is in you.
Amen.